Hey everyone, haven't seen a lot of videos about how to remove a dashboard out of a Ford truck, so I thought since I just took one out and put it back in that I'd walk you through what that was like, show you some of the caveats and things I had to go through. So this is my 99.5 F350. It's got a diesel, 5-speed or 6-speed, it's manual. So it's a pretty good year, new body style from that era and the first set of like decent motors. Anyway, I did just take the dashboard out, and I thought I'd walk you through some of the basics of that. I was putting in sound insulation to make it a little quieter because it's really loud. So I'll walk you through first the big stuff, places where the dashboard is attached to the firewall, and then I'll try and walk you through all the small little things that you have to deal with when taking out the dash. It's not too bad, actually. It's just a lot of small fiddly stuff. So let's start with the big stuff. The dashboard is actually attached by, the main part of the dashboard is attached with just 8 bolts. It's not huge. We'll start with the big ones. They're basically 2 bolts. You'll see one down here, this little green bolt right here. They're all little 10mm bolts. They're in there pretty good. There's one here on the passenger side. And behind this cover, which is super easy to remove, it's just a screwdriver. Pop it out, basically pull the weather stripping out, put a screwdriver in here, and it's pretty easy. There's a bolt behind here. You can see I've still got the floor out, or the carpeting out and stuff, so it's easier to move through. On the driver's side, you can pull this cover off right here. That thing just popped off, it's super easy. Same deal. Lots of weather stripping. You can actually see two bolts. The thing that's really interesting about this is there are 2 bolts, 1, 2, and you'll see this piece in the middle. That's actually a pin, and the reason that's useful is because when you take the dashboard out and you put it in, it can be supported by this pin, which actually makes it pretty easy. So those 4 bolts are in there. They're reasonably sturdy, even though they're only 10mm. The one big thing to realize is there is a 5th green bolt in the center of the dashboard. You can kind of see it, it's just below the steering wheel, but if you look behind this piece of ducting, there's a green bolt right there, right where my finger is, that attaches right in the center. So it's very easy to miss that one. You're going to need another person to help you. Basically, I take that one out first and then take out the ones on the sides and very carefully pull it away once you pulled everything else away. So let's talk about the rest of that and all the little pieces. I'll actually start, since I'm here on the driver's side, I'll start with all the pieces that are in here. It's mostly just fiddly bits. I would say you can do it with the parking brake in, that doesn't matter. You do have to remove the parking brake release, which screws into the bottom here. That's not too bad. When I did it, you do have to pull out, you can see the pedals is basically the brake connector. That's pretty easy. The clutch connector comes off back here. The things that really matter for here are, there's a parking brake switch right here, which still has a piece of blue tape on it from when I labeled it. You got to pull that out. The really big pain in the butt thing to do is to get out the main connector, because the dashboard actually comes out with most of the wiring harness. So this thing, which I haven't put up all the sound insulation around yet, is interesting because there's a bunch of questions in the forums about how to pull it out. The way that it works is kind of interesting. There's basically three pins on each side of it. It clicks into the firewall. And so there's a big gap here, which is normally covered by the original sound insulation, which I pulled out and replaced with different stuff. The big thing is there's 3 big connectors on the other side. You got to pull them out of the firewall, pull them away from the firewall and the connector on the other side. There's little 10mm bolts, and you basically undo the bolts and pull them out. The bottom one is a real pain in the butt. So because it's the fender is in the way on my truck, it's super hard to get to. But the trick is, you pull those 3 bolts out, you pull out 1, 2, and you can pull them out of the connector on the other side. And then you can usually slide this a little bit and bend it out enough to get the bottom one out. Once you get the bottom one out, all you do on the other side is just squeeze the connectors There's 3 of them, 1, 2, 3 on each connector, and then this will pull in like this. It took me a long time to figure this out, so I thought it was something worth looking at. I also pulled out the ECU to try and get everything out because I was getting the sound insulation out. There's 2 bolts that hold that in. You probably don't have to do that to pull out the dashboard, I don't think, but you might. There's a bolt here, and then there's another bolt on the very top that goes into the side where the parking brake is. You're not gonna be able to see it from here, but it's up there, trust me. And in order to get it loose, I pulled these 2 bolts out too. Same deal on the other side. Actually, the ECU connector is really easy. It's another 10mm bolt. You just pull it out from the passenger side. That is most of the connectors. You'll see here I don't have the pedal or the accelerator pedal installed. It's not that hard to pull out though. There's just 1, 2, 3 bolts, and it has 2 wiring connectors on here, which I haven't actually installed yet. You can see them here. There's 2 of those connectors. Another connector you have to pull out is there are 2 wiring harnesses right here. These 2 have to be disconnected. They're pretty easy. They're normal Ford stuff. You just pull the tabs out and very carefully pull them out. They come out pretty easy. The other thing to pull out is the actual steering column. The steering column here is basically pulled in. There's a bolt right here. I labeled it very carefully. I just put an X mark on the shaft that you pull out and the collar. And once you pull that bolt out, actually this thing slides out super easy. I had no problems with it at all. When I did that though, one of the things I did was I zip tied the wheel to the column shifter to keep it from turning. Older versions of this steering wheel had a clock spring in it where if you turned it too far it would break the clock spring and then you'd have to take the whole thing apart. This actually comes out with the dashboard, so not too hard. I did take the airbag out as recommended by the manufacturer instructors when I was pulling this out, and it's just like two like I think they're 8mm bolts or something behind here. Super easy. There's two wiring connectors inside. Just keep it away from your face. You'll probably be happy. I also pulled off the dash cluster because I wanted to clean it, although I don't think you're actually required to do so, but you do have to take off this cover. And what's interesting is this cover is pretty easy to take off. You basically take these 2 bolts out from, you pull the radio out, which I'm not going to go into, remove these 2 screws which are still here, and the whole thing just pulls off. It's not too hard, and there's a bunch of wiring that has to be pulled off to do that too. I'll walk you through the passenger side stuff too. We'll go back around. So on the passenger side, the main things you have to deal with are the air conditioning and all the HVAC controls. So it's not too hard. You can see basically right here, there's a big vacuum connector on this truck. The instructions are a little different, but this vacuum connector comes out pretty easy. It's just stiff, I think, because it's different than a normal electrical connector. One of the things that matters is up on top, you'll see a very small connector for, this is an electrical connector. It runs one of the doors. That has to be removed. It just pulls out. It's pretty easy. And down below, you can see some of the vacuum things that drive the doors. I also pulled these out. I actually don't know if you have to remove them, but I did. Just made things a lot easier in the end. I also pulled this whole box off, but you don't have to do that to pull the dashboard, actually. You can actually replace the heater core without taking the dashboard out, which is nice in this truck. I won't go into taking the dashboard out. That's not very hard. Some of the things that did have to come out, which I'll go into in a minute, but this orange cord here is actually the antenna cable, which you do have to pull, which I'll go into. But the big thing is there's 3 electrical connectors here. There's a fuel reset switch that has a connector in it. I don't actually know if that's there on the gas motors, but it's certainly here on the diesel motors. And there's 2 electrical connectors. And you have to pull out this, I think it's this one. You got to pull it out very carefully from its, basically pull it out of the metal with a removal tool. I will say they're usually covers here. The covers are just held in by one pin, plastic pin. If you get one of those interior kits with tools in it, you just slide it in and then pop them out very carefully. Same is true here, actually, for, you probably don't have to pull the carpeting to get everything out. I did that as well. But there are side plates that you have to pull out as well. They're held in by these little pins that basically go in. If you put a hand on each side and pull gently up, they will just pop out very carefully. Hopefully yours is in good shape as mine. I got an unusually good truck, I think, for 20 years old. One of the other things, I should probably go over this. On mine has a, here, I'll go around the other side, it's easier to see. This is this computer down here, which is right underneath the dashboard, is actually it's a crash sensor for airbags. And the way it works is it has a big connector on it. The trick is it's got a little sliding electrical piece here, and you have to pull this piece out away, and once it comes all the way out, and it gets stuck easy, so you have to like jam a piece of a hook or something under here from your interior toolkit, and then pull it all the way out until it's done. And then this electrical connection comes out pretty easy. It requires some force, but you do have to know to pull this tab out quite a bit. It does have a stop to keep it from coming out automatically, so you'll have to like pull it up and over. And then there's just 3 bolts, another 3 10mm bolts that come out. And then this whole assembly comes out, and it's not too hard. The thing I didn't cover, I said there were 8 bolts originally. I covered the 5 big bolts on the sides here. There are also 3 bolts up top that attach it to the dashboard. You'll see I've still got underneath these covers, which always break when you pull them apart. I had to order some more off eBay. There's 2 on the left are bigger. They're bigger bolts. The one on the right is basically a screw. You'll see that little one down there, it's black. I don't know if you can see it from this angle. There's 2 that are sort of silver colored. So those are the 3 bolts. If you pull those bolts plus the 5 other bolts, you'll find they're pretty easy. I did say I want to go over the antenna. Here's the other end of the antenna, actually. Because there's some trick to the antenna as well. So the antenna actually is here, and one of the things you know is you can pull up this plastic piece, and there's a thing you can just unscrew it here with a wrench. I don't remember what size it is. And you unscrew the whole thing from here, and then you pull this plate. This plate has a bunch of screws in it. I think there's 4 screws along the end, and it's got 3 pins here, which of course in my case are all heat cycled out from being next to the engine, so they all cracked and stuff, but that's sort of the old truck thing. And when you pull it out, there's 3 screws underneath. You pull out the holder, and then the antenna piece just comes in and is plugged into it, just pulls out, super easy. The instructions actually say to pull this piece out, like the cover underneath the thing, to fish the antenna out. I didn't have to do that. I just pulled it through sort of gently, and when I wanted to run it back through, I just ran a couple of zip ties that I've tied together down, pulled it through, and then taped it like a normal wiring pull you do in your house, a fish tape or whatever it's called. And I was able to get it up through without having to disassemble any of this. So you probably don't have to do that. So that's the big trick. It wasn't crazy to do. I did have to do a little bit of stuff. I also pulled the brake and the clutch to get underneath to put in more soundproofing, which involved like pulling the master cylinder and the clutch cylinder and stuff. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to worry about it. I will say, at least on my truck, whoever owned it before me, they did a pretty good job on the wiring harness. So there's, this is my electric brake controller for a trailer, and it's wired in directly with the factory wiring harness. So all of it came out with the dashboard. I don't think that there was much else that I had to pull. One thing that's sort of interesting, one thing that will catch when you're coming out, you'll see that the lower defrost, there's a pipe right here, so the drivers can get warm feet, or cold feet, warm feet when you turn the heat on. And it connects, basically there's a little brake right here. This part stays with the dashboard. There's a lower piece that attaches the air boxes down here. And they basically have to mate when you put the dashboard in or pull it out. So basically you'll have to move the whole thing to the left when it comes out and pull it out. One thing I'll say in particular is that the, it's heavy. comes out with the steering wheel on it. If you, I mean, I don't think you actually have to technically pull the radio other than those screws. You don't have to pull the gauge cluster, so it might even be heavier in the passenger side airbag doesn't come out as well. So like you're going to need two people. And as you can see, I have the seats out and everything out, but I would, if you want to make it easier, I would actually pull the seats out, because then you have to climb across and it doesn't take too much time to get the seats out, but that helped a lot. Anyway, I think that covers the majority. I'll update other comments if I can think of other things that need to be connected or disconnected, but I think that covers most of the stuff that has to come out to get your dashboard out. So I hope this helps. Thanks.